So where's the disconnect? Here we go. Okay, well, man, all right. I get it. My boss tells me this. It's a numbers game, folks. I guess it's just a numbers game. I'm just going to spray and pray. I'm going to throw everything I can up against the wall and see what sticks. Activity, 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 activity. There's no evidence that more at-bats makes you a better ball player. More at-bats doesn't make you a better ball player. The problem with activity is, we live in a time zone. See, people think wealth exists on the money line. I disagree. To me, wealth exists on the timeline. Money is a vehicle to give us more time to do what we want to do. And people don't think that. They think that wealth is about money. Let me just submit evidence that wealth is about time. We've all lost people in our life. We've all lost people, and what would we give to have one more day with those people? We would give, many of us, all of our wealth. That tells you that wealth exists on the timeline. But so we're going after activity. There's no evidence that activity works. Look at, 1 out of 100 salespeople to accumulate wealth. That bridge doesn't work, and so we're over here going, man, I can't get across. I don't know. You know what? I'm not cut out for this. I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. It's not for me. 99% say that. And in your industry, in the industry I came from, 98% failure rate. 98% of the people never make any money. Well, let me tell you this. There is no bridge across that river. There is no bridge across the river of wealth. If you look at the wealthy over here, their clothes are wet. How did they get across that river? They swam. They didn't need a bridge. They had the skill of swimming that river of wealth. They had a singular skill. In the workshop, I do this thing where and who are those 1%? I say, who are those 1%? The 1% are entrepreneurs just like you. That's who they are. That's who the 1% are. And I say to people, shout out a quality or a characteristic of an entrepreneur. Risk taker, driven, persistent, create. All these words come out. And by the way, I've been doing this for 2 years. 2 years, nobody, no matter what size of the group, whether it's this size, 5,000 or 50, nobody's ever shouted out the one common quality that the 1% have. Not all 1% are risk takers. Not all 1% are driven. Not all 1% are creative. I'm none of those things. I waited till I had enough money of myself working for somebody else before I'd even take a risk of starting my own business. I wasn't a risk taker. But we think, well, you have to have all these things. And I'll ask them, how many of you have all these qualities? And everybody raises, yes, I do. And here's what I say. None of those qualities have anything to do with being in the 1%. Every high school cheerleader has all those qualities. None of those qualities has anything to do with that 1%. And the 1%, not all of them have all those qualities, and some of them have none of those qualities. They all have one thing in common. I'm not talking about lottery winners or inheritance. The wealthy 1% all have one thing in common. One thing and only one thing in common. And that's what gets them across the river. That one common quality, that one common characteristic they all have in common, folks, they're the best salespeople in their industries. No one's ever shouted out sales. And do you know why? Because we're so ashamed of the word sales in this country. We're so ashamed of the word sales, we have to come up with fancy names to disguise it, like entrepreneur. Sales is the highest paying profession in the world. We're groomed in this country, back in the turn of the century, in the turn of the 20th century, 95% of the people work for themselves. At the turn of the 21st century, that was exactly opposite. We are all groomed. Our entire education system is groomed to do what? To teach us to go after security, to teach us to go how to work for somebody else and build somebody else's dream. So we're taught that if you want security, you got to work for somebody else and you give up something very important. You have to give up freedom. So some of us, okay, let's be wild-eyed entrepreneurs. Let's step away from the security. Let's open our own business and let's go after the freedom and leave all that security behind. Folks, you don't have to do that. There's one profession, and only one profession, that guarantees freedom and security, and that profession is sales. I worked for somebody for 20 years, yet no one ever asked me where I was. Why? Because I sold. I made a lot of money doing it. I had freedom and security even working for somebody else. When you can sell, it doesn't matter. And I make a controversial statement, selling doesn't work. There's no evidence that selling works. 99 out of 100 people try to sell, only 1% make it. Sales is a profession. Selling is a weak activity and an abject failure. Selling is a weak activity and an abject failure. Look at the evidence. We try all these things. What we lack, what we need to make sure, to guarantee that we're going to be in that 1%, you have to have the skill of influence. The skill of influence is, in this analogy, the ability to swim across the river of wealth. And what do I mean by influence? We're going to cover that in detail today. But you have to, you know what I love about HBW, we're in the same business, helping build wealth. Let me tell you, I don't believe the definition of helping build wealth means selling products to people. To me, influence, you have to recruit and lead an army across that river with you. From clients to people that you bring into business, you have to lead that. You have to bring people in your wake across that river. That's wealth. Wealth, helping people start business, helping people protect their families, all those things are included. To sell product is a weak activity. To be influential in all aspects of your life is everything. Does that make sense? We need to be more influential. Here's what I found out. Here's what I studied for 16 years, coming to this point. About 1 to 2% have a natural ability to be influential. And let me tell you what happened. So here's what was going on with me. For 10 years, from 1985 to 1995, I did what they told me to do. I did it. I did it exactly like they did it. I listened to the top sales trainers, the top sales professionals. I was mentored by them, and I did exactly what they did, and it didn't work. You know this story. It didn't work for me doing exactly what they did, and so I'm left to think, okay, what am I left with? I have to blame myself and say, I'm just not cut out to be in the 1%. There's nothing else left. I'm not cut out to be in that 1%. And they would scratch their head and go, I don't know what's wrong with Don. I mean, there's just something about him, I guess. People just don't want to buy from him. He is doing exactly what we're doing. No, here's what happened. They had a natural ability to influence, but to them it was natural, so they didn't know how to teach it. To them it was like breathing in and out. And it's strange to me that 1% are wealthy and 1% have a natural ability to influence. We all have the ability to influence, but only 1% develop it naturally. Isn't that a strange coincidence? So doing what they did, I really wasn't doing what they did. Because influence creates something else. There's something else there. It creates confidence, and it creates leadership, and it creates an aura around them that people just wanted to buy from them. Me, I didn't have that aura. Remember, I wasn't the 1% that had it naturally. So I was on a pursuit, I was on a mission to dissect how to develop a skill of influence. And so that we can teach it to ourselves, and we can teach it to other people and train people to be influential. And that's where we are. And that's what we've done. We've identified that process, and here's what the people that are going to be there tomorrow, I'm going to guarantee you it's going to be a mind-blowing day. You will not believe how fast that day is going to go tomorrow. People come up, they go, is it over? That's it? That's 6 hours? That's 7 hours? You're going to see things in an entirely different light.